This week marks many coinciding new beginnings. There's the obvious set of beginnings, and there are others. Like many of you, I stayed glued to the television much of the morning on Wednesday, marveling at the rituals created to inaugurate President Biden and Vice President Harris. A markedly different celebration this year, given the current state of affairs. Here at the beginning of a new administration, after what was one of the most divisive presidential election seasons in our history, we witnessed the peaceful and democratic transfer of power just as our founders envisioned. In fact, this is actually a Jewish concept. You see, the Mishnah, the first major written collection of Judaism's oral tradition, relates that in ancient times, there were 4 New Years on the Jewish calendar. The High Holy Day season in the fall, then Tu B'Shvat, Passover, and last, a New Year for Kings. That 4th New Year, the New Year for Kings, was said to be the date on which leaders marked the end of one term and the beginning of another. I found it refreshing this week to hear our leaders, both Democrats and Republicans, speak about the need for unity, acknowledging that we cannot continue with the same hateful us versus them mentality that has poisoned our politics and so many aspects of our lives. I pray their words were not just for the cameras, but that our leaders in Washington soon realize that their success and ours will require actually speaking with one another, debating the issues, and working together on behalf of all Americans. As Rabbi Geffen taught in her sermon last week, praying for our government officials is a regular part of traditional Jewish prayer. In the Bible, the prophet Jeremiah exclaimed, "Seek the welfare of the city where you live and pray to the Eternal on its behalf. For in its prosperity, you shall prosper." Formal prayers for the government were included in the Siddur as early as the 14th century and adopted as a fixed component of our liturgy by the 17th. Prayer, though, we know, is not enough. As Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel taught, prayer cannot bring water to parched fields or mend a broken bridge or rebuild a ruined city. The work of justice and peace requires action. That responsibility does not belong to our leaders alone, but Jewish tradition reminds us that we are each not only capable of working towards peace, but commanded to pursue it. In this week of transition for our nation, I pray that we take it as an invitation for all of us to engage in the holy pursuits of unity and shalom. Let us heed the words so powerfully spoken this week by National Youth Poet Laureate Amanda Gorman. We will raise this wounded world into a wondrous one. There is always light if only we're brave enough to see it. If only we're brave enough to be it. Next week marks another transition, another new year, Tu B'Shvat, the New Year for trees. The holiday, which actually starts at sundown on Wednesday, began as an agricultural festival to mark the transition between the springtime and the planting season. So even here in the middle of winter, we can begin to envision our gardens, to plant the seeds for the spring. Some of us will plant the parsley that we'll use at Seder. Just as the New Year for Kings marks a changeover in power and a new beginning for our officials, Tu B'Shvat comes as a reminder that spring will come again, that we will soon once again be able to get outside and see the seeds that we planted bloom into colorful flowers and fruit-bearing trees. A natural world created for us to enjoy and even to help shape. How liberating. Which brings me to the Torah reading this Shabbat and a third New Year, Passover, the Jews' particular New Year, on which we recount our people's liberation from slavery. We find an early reference to what will much later become the Passover Seder in this week's Torah portion, Bo, the very first commandment given to the newly recognized nation of Israel. God tells Moses and Aaron that they shall instruct the Israelites about the Paschal offering. We learn they were commanded to eat the flesh, roasted over the fire, with unleavened bread and with bitter herbs. Just as our people have done for generations, we too will soon lift up Pesach, Matzah, and Maror and recount our ancestors' journey out of Egypt, encouraging each of us to step into the story and wrestle with the holiday's big questions. As we read every year around the Passover table, in every generation, a person is obligated to look at oneself as if they personally had gone out of Egypt. The Exodus led to a new beginning for our biblical ancestors, and our remembrance of their journey connects us to each other and to the larger Passover narrative to which we are all a part, even if we experience that narrative differently. As I began, this week marks many coinciding new beginnings, each representing a transition for us, and the planting of a seed for a prayer yet realized. The new year for kings, planting seeds of democracy and a more just society for all. The new year for trees, planting seeds that will grow to be the food we enjoy, as well as opening our eyes to the abounding beauty all around. And the new year for our people, planting seeds of empathy for those still enslaved, and recognizing the deep connections among each of us today and back through the generations. O guardian of life and liberty, may our nation always merit your protection. Teach us to give thanks for that which we have by sharing it with those who are in need. Keep our eyes open to the wonders of creation and alert to the care of the earth. May we never be lazy in the work of peace. May we honor those who have died in defense of our ideals. Grant our leaders wisdom and forbearance. May they govern with justice and compassion, and help us all to appreciate one another, to respect the many ways that we may serve you. May our homes be safe from affliction and strife, and our country sound in body and spirit. Kenya Hiratzon, may our actions merit all that coming true. Shabbat Shalom.